see everybody, I presume. All the pictures got smaller.
How many of you got 4 there? I only get 4 on my screen, Allison.
I've got 2 rows of 4 and 1 row of 2 at this point.
I can go like that and get a few more, I think.
You can hide your own view. Gives you another spot. Hi, Maureen.
Go to gallery. No, that I got gallery there. Now, can you go to gallery and still?
I'm in gallery.
Oh, you are? Well, I've got 9, 10, 11 in gallery.
Well, at this point, I've got 11.
Oh, yeah, you can still do that. Okay, well, that's good. That's
I can do 12.
better than the
Hopefully,
average.
I might get another row.
And if you hide self-view, then everybody
Well,
gets there.
yeah, but if I hide me, then that's hide my video, isn't I removing that from everybody, right?
No. If you
don't
hide
think-
self-view, in your own little box with your picture, the little 3 dots up in the top right, if
There's no 3 dots in my box of picture.
Oh, there's Michael. Okay.
you may need to move
yeah.
your finger or cursor around. It might not be there for you. Okay.
All right. Well, I think
Now I've got you full screen.
Oh, you don't want that.
I think we've got everybody
I've
there.
just got choice of gallery view or.
Well, go gallery. You get 12.
Oh, that's
people
what
in.
I've got. That's what I've got.
Okay. Hope you're ready to go.
I am.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, welcome everybody, and welcome to the public who are coming into with their public participation or not. Their interest in the community is much appreciated. Just this will be the regular council meeting of Monday, February 22nd, 2021. And just before we get going here, I was just going to read what I consider a bit of a public service announcement. And this was written from, this came from Kathy Peters, who's a BC anti-human trafficking educator, speaker, and advocate. I'm sure everybody knows her, a long time Bowen Islander. Today, February 22nd, is National Human Trafficking Awareness Day in Canada to raise awareness of modern day slavery and take steps to combat human trafficking. Human trafficking is one of the fastest growing crimes worldwide and here. Vancouver, the Lower Mainland, is vulnerable as a port city and entry port into Canada. Average age of recruitment into the sex industry is 13 years old. Over 70% of human trafficking victims are under the age of 25. The vulnerable are targeted by growing an undeterred sex industry. You must stop this. One of the reasons that HT is such a problem is globalization, unregulated technology, limited law enforcement, and almost no prevention education. Raising awareness with the BC public is desperately needed since the sex industry is growing rapidly with no deterrence. No community is immune from human trafficking, and the news of potential abductions throughout BC will only continue if we do not warn the public on how to protect their families. And it goes on a little bit, but just to be very aware, this is very close to us, and it's not somewhere else in the world, and it's just something we should be aware of. Thank you. And we are now going to open the council meeting, and we will go to the approval of the agenda. Hope, I noticed there were some late issues there. On table issues.
Hi, yes, there were a few on table items circulated earlier today. One regarding 6.1, letter from Heather Miller, a letter from Margaret Underhill and Brian Buckingham regarding the temporary use permit and under item 7.1. And then there was a news release regarding the unique heritage infrastructure funding announcement. That's item 10.3, and an information item from Mark Edmonds as well. So 4 items in total.
All right. Okay. With that complete, does anybody have anything else they'd like to move on to the agenda or anything we figure they've omitted? I don't see any response there. So the recommendation is that council approve the agenda and late items for the February 22nd, 2020 regular council meeting. I'll move that, and a second to.
Second it.
I see Michael there. Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And then we'll move on to public comments, Hope. How does that look?
This evening, we have no one pre-registered for public comment. However, there are a few members of the public here, so we could do.
Yeah, you can do a poll if you want. speak up now or forever hold your peace. Okay, I don't see anybody coming up here. Put my hand thing up here. No, I don't see anybody that's interested. So we do not have any public comments at this time. And we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they'd like some more clarification on the consent agenda?
Sue Ellen here.
Okay, I've got Rob first and then Sue Ellen.
Yeah, Gary, I don't know if if we should do this under the consent agenda, but I just wanted to pull 12.8 and 12.11. They're both letters at the end there. So
12.
is that something we should leave till the end, or can we do that under the consent agenda?
If you want
Yeah,
to
we could-
discuss them, you have to pull them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
We'll pull-
so
We can
we'll do
move
that.
them to section 11, items removed from the consent agenda.
Thanks, Hope.
Yeah, thank you. And anybody else? Sue Ellen.
I'd like to pull 12.4 also from information items for discussion, please. 12.4.
Got it. All right, if that concludes it, then we will, the recommendation is council approve the items as outlined in the February 22nd, 2021 consent agenda as amended. I'll move that. And a second, thanks. Allison, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think we got everybody there. All right, so we're gonna move into the delegations, which we have none, Hope. And the business arising from the minutes, which we have none. So into the bylaws, 6.1. So the 2021 5-year financial plan number 533, 2021. Raj Hare, Chief Financial Officer. Raj, nice to have you along, and away you go. I'll pass it over to you.
Can't hear you, Raj.
No, speaker,
You're mute.
still mute.
My apologies, everybody.
Don't worry.
A little technical glitch, but I was just, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. So at the last council meeting, we had the first 3 readings of the financial plan bylaw. We had not attached 2 of the public comments. One we hadn't received in our office until after the council meeting. And the other one, it was an oversight on our part in attaching it to the agenda. So those 2 public comments have been attached. I don't have anything further to add to the financial plan bylaw report. I was just going to go back. Staff comments or staff responses to those comments were also circulated to council and are attached to the submissions for comments on the financial plan bylaw and budget.
Okay, thank you, Raj. Any, Rob, I see you got your hand up there.
No, that's no.
Okay, that's not supposed to be there. Anybody else? Hold on here, I gotta go back in. Okay, so Sue Ellen.
Thank you. Raj, this is not a difficult question, I don't think. I was just wondering, how long is it since, or if you know, do you know when the classifications, the distribution ratio for municipal property taxes was last considered by council? Or even just if it was,
I know there hasn't been a change in the classification since I've started here, and I started in the beginning of 2018. I believe it's, I'm going off of memory, but it's 4.16 to 1 for the industrial and other uses. So it's
utilities,
and the business is 1-on-1, so it's equivalent to the resident.
right? And 0.5 for farm. I wanted to ask, does that mean they have to have provincial farm status in order to claim the 0.5?
That's correct. They would have to be assessed as a farm class property by BC Assessment
Right.
Authority.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Sue Ellen, thank you. And Maureen?
Thank you, Gary. Raj, thank you for your responses to the late letters. I was wondering if you could just verbally recap your response to Heather Miller's concerns regarding salary adjustment for the municipality. I know that you have done so in writing, but I think that it would be helpful just to hear that and have it on the audio recording.
Okay, so my response to the salaries was the comment received from Heather was that the increase exceeded the CPI index, that a 4% increase was being awarded to staff salaries. And that is not the case. When we started the buildup of the salary model, we had used the average of the last 12 months, which was 2%. So a 2% CPI index was used to basically adjust the salaries for CPI. And it also, and that worked out to about $72,000. So if you take $72,000 as a percentage of the 2020 salaries and benefits budget, it works out to about 2%. And essentially the benefits component. So we had 102,100 being the salaries and benefits component. About 72,000 of that was straight salaries and 28,000 was benefit costs. And so overall, it worked out to about a 1.8% tax levy increase to fund the CPI-based index salary. We did not adjust down to the actual CPI index rate, which is 0.7%. There was not there wouldn't have been a substantial saving. And the 2% is in line with other regional settlements that have been coming in. Almost all municipalities have been settling their collective agreements and for 2020 and 2021. And they're all coming in at 2% for each 2020 and each 2021.
Thank you, Raj.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Raj, for that. Rob?
Yeah, Raj, thanks. And I know this has been mentioned a couple of times that, summing up a whole financial report publicly is quite tricky. And I think you did a really good job at that. One of the areas, though, that I think I'd like to see for next year is on the capital project side, a bit of a better division of where we are all in funding and where we are getting external funding. So we have a better gauge of how much is Bowen Island taxpayers for projects and how much is also coming from external funding for some of these capital projects. Because on a couple of them, there was a lot of external funding, but it wasn't very clear in the report. So I think that might help with some clarity down the road.
I'll make sure that we include that in subsequent years, and we will also venture to include that in our we're going to be publishing our budget book.
Yeah.
So make sure that that is in the budget book so that you can, so that people are aware where there is grant funding available in use there.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Raj. Any further discussion on this? Okay, I don't see any. So the recommendation is the bylaw 533-2021 cited as Bowen Island Municipality 2021 5-year financial plan bylaw number 533-2021 be reconsidered and finally adopted. I will move that. Second, please.
I second that.
Okay, thank you, David. I have you, and no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Councillor Morse? Thank you. You got that, Hope? Super. Okay, we're going to move down to staff reports. 7.1 temporary use permit application TUP 2021-0017 for 620 Laura Road. And that's Rob Purdy and Christine Hardy. And that's over to you, Daniel Martin, Manager of Planning and Development. We're a little ahead of schedule, but I see you're here. That's great. Thank you.
I am here. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So as the Mayor said, we're discussing today a temporary use permit application for 620 Laura Road. And for those councillors or members of the public who are curious, we've changed our permit numbering system as of 2021 to better mesh with our electronic payment options. So they're now this 8-digit number where the first 4 of the year and the next 4 digits are our total permit numbers for all permits for the year. So we haven't had 17 TUP applications this year, but this would have been the 17th permit application we received in 2021. So this application is for a cidery to take place at 620 Laura Road, which is at the intersection of Laura and West Side Road. When the applicant bought the property, there was a 1-acre apple orchard located at the intersection of Laura Road and West Side Road, and the applicant has subsequently planted about an additional 1 acre of apple trees for the cidery. So the overall site plan has the existing orchard and the new orchard and a cidery, which they converted an existing farm outbuilding into the proposed cidery. The property is zoned rural residential 2. And a feature of this zoning, it allows for agricultural use. So it already allows for the processing or the harvesting of crops, the processing and sale of the products that are produced on that lot. So one of the first things in this application was actually trying to determine what was necessary for the temporary use permit. So in our agriculture zone, we would already permit somebody to grow apples, to process the apples into apple juice or apple cider and to sell that cider on the property. So what we ended up determining was the temporary use permit is really needed to meet the proposed cidery definition, which allows for additional apples from offsite to be added to the mix of the cidery, and potentially some of the retail functions or the picnic functions would potentially start to exceed that agriculture use. So in the temporary use permit that's before you, staff have put in conditions that allow for what the applicant has proposed with some additions, but having some sort of cap on the limit. So putting a maximum size of the retail space, a maximum size of the exterior patio space, and to put parking requirements to match those that we require for cottage or artisan industry. And we would propose a definition for cidery. So our land use bylaw doesn't have a cidery definition, but it does have a winery definition. And so this would mimic the winery definition, except for cider. And I've highlighted there the at least 50% of the cider production, because I'll discuss that later. We thought about other considerations. What else might we want to have conditions on? And so these aren't included in the permit, but could be if they are issues of concern. So one is that the liquor manufacturing condition or license has conditions already to limit the hours of operation from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. And if concerns are raised, a temporary use permit could further restrict the hours that it's open. A liquor license somebody could apply for a special event area endorsement to hold special events as part of their cidery operations, and a temporary use permit could include conditions about that. Finally, also associated with the cidery, you can apply for a lounge endorsement, which is essentially more like a restaurant. The TUP doesn't include this, and as currently drafted, the TUP would not permit the operation of a lounge endorsement. I should say too, as part of this cidery business, the applicant, which the report says the applicant is applying for the temporary use permit to sort of start the business and get it operational, but then intends to apply for a rezoning should the business be successful. So some of these conditions and expansion options, I think, would be considered at that time as well, once the sort of business is established. And then finally, the applicant would prefer a following amendment to the proposed TUP. So they would prefer the cidery definition to limit the production to require just 25% of the cider come from fruit grown on the same lot. And so that's to match requirements from the liquor distribution, the liquor manufacturing license that they have allows them that only 25% of the fruit needs to be produced on that lot. But staff instead recommend a definition that would match our winery definition and match requirements for properties that operate in the agricultural land reserve. And so finally, with all that said, staff recommend that notice be given for the temporary use permit to be considered by council at its meeting of March 22nd 2021, and to authorize staff to give notice to neighboring properties. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel. Just a little bit of a clarification on that last point. They wanted to use 25% of production from the fruit grown on the lot. And what is the TUP saying?
The TUP would say 50%.
Okay, so that's going to restrict the size of the cidery for the time being, I guess. And I don't know if that gives them a fair idea of whether it's going to work or not, but I'm okay with that. And he can always apply for the rezoning if he doesn't like that, I guess.
Yeah, and that was part of staff thinking too, is that it seems like maybe holding the 50% is more in keeping with like similar to an agriculture zone. And then potentially then a rezoning would be moving to like maybe one of our rural commercial zones that would say it's more of a commercial use. There's less tie to the produce of the lot.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to Maureen.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Daniel, for the report. I think this is quite an interesting application for us to be considering. The concerns that have been expressed so far have had to do with the extent of the notification of neighbours, and Laura Road is quite a quiet area, and the points that were raised in the letters that we have already received from the public have to do with the extent of the notification. Do our procedures allow for broader notification to take place beyond the 100 odd meters?
So I believe that our bylaw requires that it be sent to everyone within 100 meters. There's nothing wrong then in council specifying a larger area.
Thank you, Daniel. And my feeling is that it would be a good idea to specify a larger area. I think that the neighbors would feel more comfortable about this project going forward if they had that opportunity to respond. This is an area in which there are large properties, and as the letter writers pointed out, those large properties take up a lot of those 100 odd meters. The other question I had to do with precedent, and I don't know if I'm on solid grounds in asking this question, but I'll ask it anyway. There is another cidery in development, is my understanding, on I guess it's on Grafton, just as it turns into Adams Road. Are we establishing any sort of precedent in considering a TUP for the Laura Road property that might constrain other applicants down the road?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the other cidery under development is located on the Agriculture Land Reserve, and the ALR, if you are an ALR property, you are permitted to have an alcohol production facility, and it's one of the land uses that is within the ALR that local government can't prohibit. So they are permitted the cidery based on their ALR designation, irrespective of what our zoning allows or doesn't allow.
Okay, thank you, Daniel.
Okay, thanks, Maureen. And I'm going to move on to Rob.
Yeah, thanks. Maureen sort of touched on the notification area, and I definitely would like to see that expanded. So I don't know, Daniel, what you think is a reasonable sort of distance, but especially knowing that this is going to be people driving in and out of this location potentially, and if there are going to be liquor sales there, the impact obviously is going to be a bit beyond just 100 meters of that residence, especially considering how big that property is. So I'll leave it up to you, Daniel, maybe to offer us some guidance on what a good distance would be, but 100 meters to me is definitely is not enough. And I think Maureen was sort of touching a bit on this as well, but just a bit of concern about, you know, the slow conversion of residential and ALR land to commercial land through sort of small changes and TUPs and whatnot. And I just want us to be aware of that and make sure that we're not setting a precedent here that we get this happening on other ALR or residential properties to a larger degree. So that's just my 2 comments.
Okay.
If I can
Thanks.
just respond. I'll just say this property isn't within the ALR. So the other one Maureen was talking about, it is, this one is not, but the cidery use that's proposed in the TUP is something that the ALR permits as well. So in that sense, what's currently proposed, while this property is not on ALR, would be permitted if it was an ALR property.
Okay. And what do you think of distance, Daniel? Like, have we done this in the past where we've moved beyond 100 meters?
We did most recently for the IDLC TUP proposal.
How far did we go with that?
I mean, I think that was more identifying neighbors within, like with that one, I brought a map to specify the expanded notice area. I mean, just looking at it now, I think we would just say to give notice within 400 meters would capture the properties that were identified in the letter that we received. It seems like at that point you've captured people to the end of West Side Road along Adams Road. And that would seem to me to capture the concerns.
Okay, thanks.
All right, just to your point there, Daniel, I guess we want to sort of notify anybody that could be obviously conflicted with this, so there's no question about that. So I don't know if everybody has to be in there, but what about if you hit all the immediate neighbors there? You're going to get that at 300 anyway, aren't you?
Yeah, so the 100 meters captures, I think it's 8 properties.
Yeah.
So basically it's the surrounding properties on West Side Road and Laura Road, but not further down West Side Road. And definitely not the properties that just border Adams and not West Side Road.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a noise issue here and or a traffic issue, either one of them. However, I'll go with the majority, what the majority thinks here. Anyway, we'll move on to David Hawking. Thank you, David.
Thanks. Thank you, Gary. And thanks for this, Daniel. I was very pleased when I saw this. I thought, I mean, I know that area. I walk up there, I ride my bike up there a lot. And as Maureen says, it's a quiet area, but there's a fabulous apple orchard there that lots of people visit. And in one of the things we said in our tax increase is that it's unfortunate we don't have a lot of businesses on Bowen so that means that all of the tax burden is, or almost all of the tax burden is on residences. And this seems to me to be the perfect kind of business that we'd like to see on Bowen, where we're using Bowen's agricultural production and doing something with it. And so I was very pleased to see this. In terms of your 50% versus their 25%, I liked your rationale around the 50% of the apples, but I've never made apple cider, so I have no idea whether that causes a particular problem. I'd want to hear, I guess, what the proponent says. I would hope that it would be using mostly their local apples, but I'm no expert there. But I agree with your principle. So really, it was just a couple of comments in support of this proposal. Thank you very much, Gary.
Thank you, David. And move on to Allison.
Thanks, Gary. Couple of questions. I'm just curious as to why the Liquor Control Board is different. Like they allow 25% versus ALR allowing 50%. Any idea why the difference?
I don't know, and I didn't know there was a difference until I had told the applicant this is the definition, because based on our other definition, they said, oh, it's a different requirement from the Liquor Board.
And I think it's not a matter when you're talking about how much, it's a matter of not blending apples necessarily to get quality, but to have enough apples to put through the cidery to make it viable. I think that's maybe more of the issue than it looks like there's a lot of apples, but there isn't necessarily. So that would be, I guess, the question in my mind. As far as notification goes, I don't know why we would cover off properties that are on Adams Road that don't back onto West Side Road. So to me, it should be the the properties on West Side Road and Adams Road and West Side Road and Laura Road. And to the extent that some of the West Side Road ones have an address on Adams, they should be picked up. But the ones that have addresses on Adams but don't back onto Laura Road or West Side Road, I don't think they need to be picked up. So, and how far down? West Side Road doesn't go very far past the intersection with Laura Road there, does it?
I mean, 300 meters would be to the last one on West Side Road.
Okay, yeah. So maybe for clarity for everybody, so they understand, just say the properties on Laura Road and West Side Road.
Yeah.
Your 100 meters, including all properties on Laura Road and West Side Road, and then they'll all know they've been picked up rather than having to get their measuring sticks out.
Yeah. All right, we'll see. Let's go through Sue Ellen first. Thanks, Allison.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. First, a couple of quick comments. Number one, I was really glad to see the official community plan referenced here, because it kind of gives some context for that whole area of larger agricultural type lots at that side of the island in the valley there. And that was, anyway, that's been a longstanding sort of part of what we routinely hear from the public in terms of how they want to see the future of the island. They want the farming area. Secondly, a little more context is that at the end of Laura Road is a trailhead that gets a lot of use from cars and bicycles, and it's growing in the amount of people that use it, especially with COVID, I guess, and with people coming from the lower mainland. But in the years that I've been watching it, about 15 years, it seems to be growing, and sometimes there's no parking there even now. So adding traffic volume, I just want to have the context there. Now, maybe some of those trailhead users will also use the sidery, but my point is just that there's already growing traffic, and maybe they'll use the bus too, which is fine. That's great. Regarding the 50% as opposed to the 25, I like the idea of the 50% in order to keep it as a level playing field with the properties in the ALR on Bowen, because really they're not very far apart. And I like the way the 50% supports our winery definition, which was established through a public process here on Bowen, and it fits with the official community plan part. So I'll be supporting the 50%. The next one, just about the notice. Is it not true that anybody on Bowen can comment, right? It's just that the people that actually get a notice in the mail, is that what we're talking about, within the 300 or 400 meters?
Yeah.
So okay.
Yes, and we will be doing our usual, be advertised in the paper, and the sign will be on the property. Right. People often get very concerned, if they've received the letter or not. But it's more, that's the intent, to make sure that people are aware of it. And then I always tell people it's up to council then to evaluate. Council's able to evaluate concerns from the immediate neighbor versus concerns from the person across the island, and weigh those accordingly.
Great. It's just, if there's somebody who is at some other dwelling for some reason due to COVID or whatever, a mailing might reach them where the other things wouldn't. So I support the 400 meters just to make sure that we let all the neighbors know who might be affected by the traffic or the noise. I think it actually could have noise. That whole area is a sort of a natural amphitheater. And I remember talking to Josephine Riley, one of the former residents there. I worked with her on all kinds of fun volunteer projects. And anyway, on her property, she was telling me she could hear sounds of weddings and amplified sound from across was it amplified? I'm not even sure about that. Anyway, from across at another farm property across the way that used to have weddings. And so I just, there may be noise, so I'm glad that the temporary use permit is here. And finally, to my bigger question here, the part, I'm looking at the proposed conditions in your report. And in the definition of cidery, it says where 50%, at least 50% of the cider production comes from fruit grown on the same lot or from another lot, which is part of the same business. Does this mean that this business could perhaps buy a farm property in the Similkameen and use that as part of their business? Or should we insert the words fruit grown on the same lot or another lot on Bowen Island, which is part of the same business?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, I know that the ALR uses a similar definition. And I think they have some sort of regulation about the same region. So that's something that we could bring back for consideration is look
Yeah,
at that.
I would like to have a look at that because, you know, it may be possible to go into the Okanagan or the Similkameen or somewhere and, I mean, they're small trees, they're young trees just planted a couple of years ago, so I don't imagine there's going to be a whole lot of bulk. They might need apples. I take that point. But I also wondered about whether when it says another lot, which is part of the same business, could it be a leased lot? Or could it be a contract with another grower? Or
I
somebody
think
else?
it's all of the above.
Yeah, so I would like some clarity about around that or what your recommendation would be. Because I want to keep the local food is important to me, and the idea of I mean, yes, it's alcoholic beverage, but the local food from the local produce going into local products is what I'm interested in. And so I support the 400 meters just to make sure we captured everybody's input who might be affected by the traffic or the noise. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. And back to Maureen.
Thanks, Gary. I guess first off, I just want to say that I'm really glad that the Riley's Orchard is being put to use in developing a local cidery. I think that John and Josephine would be extremely happy to see this development. So kudos to the folks who are putting in the TUP application. Just two quick points. One has to do with the 25% versus the 50% contribution that's on site. I think what's important to remember is that this is a temporary use permit to help develop a sense of whether this is workable. And during the period of a temporary use permit, there will presumably be a lot of apple tree growing going on. And some of the trees that have recently been planted in the new area may come to better fruition over the next while. So I'm really fine with 25% as the proportion of on-site apples being used, because I'm assuming that as part of the business they'll want to develop something that is more grown locally. And then the second point is that, or grown on site. And then the second point is that it goes back to David's point about local business. And this is just a fact check. The fact that this is the development of a local business has, in my understanding, no impact on the property tax assessment, because our property taxes for business and residential are the same. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. The only impact would be if, as a result of the TUP and development, that BC assessment raises the assessed value.
Right. Okay. So the transitions to business alone does not mean that we're looking at increased property taxes, with that exception if the assessment
Yeah, I believe that people face a higher impact from regional taxes if they're assessed as
Yeah.
a business instead of residential.
Oh, that's interesting. In what way?
Well, so my understanding is that Bowen Island, we don't have a different tax rate for business or residential, but like your metro taxes may have a difference. Like the portion of your property tax that goes to Metro Vancouver.
Okay.
Raj, you want to come in on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel is absolutely correct that in some of the other assessment authorities, there is a different weighing on business versus residential. So they basically do their calculations of like they basically portion their assessment based on those weighings.
Raj, are you able to describe the difference in general terms? Other
I'd
than
have to take a look at it, Maureen. I can't do that right at this meeting, but I'd be happy to come back at a different time.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd appreciate that because I understood the municipal context, but I didn't understand in terms of the other jurisdictions. And I think that would be useful for us to know.
For sure, I'll make a note of that and I'll bring that back to council or follow up with an email.
Thanks, Raj. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay, thanks, Maureen. Michael?
Yes, Daniel, would you just answer for me the 25 and 50? If this was on ALR land, would they be constrained to 50% in the same way?
Yes.
They would.
Yes.
Okay, so that is the same. I can accept that, but frankly, I would probably plead for a little more leniency here. There's a business which, in the main, I think has got broad approval and support from what I can see. And this is their startup and their opening couple of years. Well, my knowledge of cider production, to say the hardest thing of any cider production is to get it started. You've got the maturity of your stock to consider. But the point I would make in front of council is that no one is going to bring in apples they don't need because there's a cost to it. They have to be unloaded, stored, and handled. You're only going to bring in what you absolutely need. So for the length of this TUP, I would perhaps ask my council colleagues for perhaps more sympathetic treatment during the period of this temporary use permit for the 25%, because I think that would help this young business. And I frankly, we would reiterate that no one is going to bring in apples they don't need because it's costly. So I think there's a sort of natural containment there. And I would like to see us do everything we can to help this young business get on its feet. So if possible, I'd like to see some flexibility in terms of the 25%, although I understand, Daniel, why it was recommended. But in this case, I would make a plea that we could, for the length of the TUP, extend the 25% as requested. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Back to David.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I was just responding to Maureen and Michael's 25 versus 50. I agree with both of them. Let's help this thing happen and not throw spanners in the works. So yeah, whatever's needed, let's make it happen.
Okay. Thank you, David. So Daniel, are the proponents aware of these stipulations?
Yes.
So they don't have a problem with the 50%?
They've asked for
No,
25.
they've asked for 25%.
Yeah. Oh, they've asked for 25. Well, yeah. But do they have a problem with 50?
They prefer 25.
So Gary, when I drafted the permit, I sent the proposed conditions, so on the size of retail and picnic area, and the cidery definition to the applicant to see if any of them would cause issues, and they sent back that they would rather have the 25% limitation to match their manufacturing license.
Okay, it seems backwards to me that they would. Well, yeah, they want 25%. They'll bring in 75%, right? But it's all based on the amount of apples they have off the property, right?
Yes.
Which there isn't a lot of. So they're better at 25% than 50%
Mhm.
in my mind, but that, you know, obviously, but we're going to restrict them to 50. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Maybe-
that's the proposed definition for cidery.
Okay, because that just won't give them the amount of production that they might need to evaluate the new business. That's all I'm thinking. Anyway, that's if they're,
Mr. Mayor,
yeah,
just wanted to let you know that the applicant is in the meeting. So if council does have any follow-up questions or clarifications, Rob did message me saying that him and Christine were available for any questions.
oh, good. Well, maybe we could go to Rob if he's there. Rob, are you there? Is he waiting?
Can I unmute myself? I can.
Yeah, there you go, Rob. Have you been following the discussion here?
I have, yes, and thanks for the discussion. And I agree with most of the points that are being brought up. So to address a few things, to Michael's point, our fruit production kind of goes from our orchard out. So our preference is what we can get here, and then what we can get on Bowen, and then what we can get elsewhere. The reality is on Bowen, it's very hard to grow fruit. Like to give you an idea, so our additional fruit would come from the Smilkmeen, which is the organic fruit growing region. So there's a growing partner there that we would be getting fruit from. The production per acre from what you can get on Bowen compared to the Smilkmeen, with the same density planted here, you get about 1/20th what they can get there. It's a function of soils and that's the organic orchards there. That's not the non-organic. So that's just the reality of Bowen and what we have here. There's about 1,200 trees planted on the property here. About 250 of them we put in 2 years ago. We put in big old mature trees. They're going to take a while. We didn't put in dwarf trees. We put in kind of the old-fashioned variety, so they'll be bigger. It's more of a traditional tree, so they take longer to establish. We did put those in 2 years ago, and then there was an existing about 800 or 900 trees here. The unique thing for those that don't know about the property is the work that John and Josephine did here before. They managed to collect out of those 800 or 900 trees. They're almost all different varieties, which is very rare and hard to find. The question, we worked with John for about 2 years before we moved up here, and John and Josephine on the property, and helped them out and got to know the orchard. And what he always mentioned to me is nobody asked him where he got the trees from, which is it's an interesting question because they're hard to find. We're kind of in the apple world now. We have people asking for scion wood for weird varieties, and we tend to have most of them here. So we're kind of plugged into that world now, and we've helped some people graft them out. And a few of you probably know last year we grafted out about 80 different varieties of trees and sold them across Bowen. So we ended up through that distributing about 800 trees across the island. My guess is about 400 of those might live. I don't know what conditions they all went to, but 800 left the property here, 80 different varieties, all heirloom, older varieties that were grafted from the property here. So there's fruit around the island, and there is another cidery that we know what they're up to, and there's two of us that hopefully will exist over here, and I think that's a great thing. But there's just not the production on the island. If you took every tree that was on the island, it doesn't even come close to what you can do off. Our preference is start here and work out. The reality of it is we'll just need to bring some in. So we do have a really good partner in the Smilkmeen to get fruit from. The regulations between the ALR and the Liquor Distribution Board, the 50 and 25 that's being discussed. So the 50, the ALR, we're not ALR, so we haven't, I'm not an expert on it, but I did look it up and I have it sitting in front of me here, and it is 50, there's a definition over 2 hectares and under 2 hectares. We're over 2 hectares on this lot. And that definition is 50% from your lot or from another BC producer, and you just need a certain length of contract in place with that BC producer. So they want to see 50% of the production come from BC. you can source the other 50 from wherever you want. You could go down to Washington State or Oregon or wherever you want. The Liquor Distribution Board, which we're governed by, is, so not being on ALR, is 25% of your production needs to come from land that's owned or leased by your cidery, and the balance of the production needs to come from BC. So they want all the production from BC fruit. So they're a little bit different. The ALR, from my understanding, it affords you a little bit more flexibility for how you run your business, everything from events to accommodation to food service, and it's a broader definition. So we're not afforded all that flexibility that the ALR has. There's also additional constraints that come with the ALR, and we don't have those. So ours is under municipal land use, and then governed by the Liquor Distribution Board and the LCRB, which is Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch. So that's what governs us. But our plan is to get the fruit that we would bring in is coming from a fully organic orchard in the Similkameen Valley, and we have that relationship in place to do it. So, and then for notifying neighbors, it's been a very tough year to engage neighbors. We moved to the property about 1.5 years or 2 years ago. The bulk of that has been COVID, and we're on 5 and 10 acre properties. It's not the type of neighborhood where you see your neighbors. And you can't, I know from my experience, you can't really walk down somebody's driveway and knock on their door right now. That scares the pants off of most people in COVID times. I've had unexpected people come here and I was caught off guard. So we haven't gone around and sort of door knocked, and there's some new neighbors that are either building or not here yet, that we just don't have their phone numbers, frankly, to call them. So it's been a kind of a function of that. We'd love to just go around both West Side Road and Laura Road. I think those are the most impacted properties to what we're doing, and speak to everybody. It's just tricky to do that right now. So if there's a different forum, or if there's anybody listening to this, like, we're welcome to talk to anybody. We want to be very open with what we're doing. It's part of going through the temporary use permit process is to get that public engagement and make sure everybody is aware, and that we're very transparent with our intentions and what we're doing. So we're happy to speak to as many people as needed. It's just a really tricky time to make that happen. You can't have that neighborhood party where you get to know everybody. So that's just a comment. I appreciate all the comments on this, and if there are any other questions, I don't want to take up your whole evening tonight. So.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Rob. That was very informative. And I think one of the points, to Sue Ellen's point there about the from fruit grown in the same lot or another lot, which is part of the same business. That's obviously any apple orchard in BC. I guess this is what they mean by that. Doesn't have to be on the island. So Rob, still haven't answered the question. You're okay with 50%? As far as your business plan is what more I'm looking at, and to Michael's point there.
25 is better.
25 is better,
yeah. It's,
sorry,
just
25.
Given the growing conditions here. In reality, so there are restrictions that are placed on in the temporary use, and I would encourage them actually to follow through in a rezoning if and when we get there, is around our operation and what we're doing, and that's square footage. So building square footage and what we can grow into. Our intention is not to be the next like Strongbow cider. We want to be a community cidery, and we live on the property. We don't. We're the most impacted, and our intention is not to grow it into this big behemoth of a business. So restrictions on square footage, building size, retail area, patio area. 100% support that, and I would encourage that. And it's been drawn. Daniel's drafted that up and with suggestions on where those numbers are, and 100% support that. The cider production, just in real terms, will impact how, like how we optimize our equipment, really. So we would like to have enough fruit that our equipment is maximized, and that's really, our equipment will be a function of the size of cidery if there's a square footage constraint. But the equipment we have, it puts us in a better position if we can use it efficiently, and we don't have kind of empty fermenters and stuff like that. So it's really just for that. So from a practical standpoint, I don't know. It's really hard to tell like the different size cideries, like a 20,000 liter versus 50,000 liter cidery. When you walk up, you wouldn't be able to notice, but it helps with the viability of the business, and it's just really a function of the growing conditions here. And that does factor in fruit that we get from around the island too. A lot of cideries are doing like a community cider, and we intend to do that, where you can bring fruit from around the island and you just put it in a pot and see what it makes. And that in the 50% definition would actually fall into the imported fruit as well. So it's for those reasons that we're saying 25, and it is consistent with the LDB. So we have one definition that we're governed by, and it's a highly regulated industry. So we have a lot of a lot of regulators overlooking what we're doing. So to have two that are consistent, I think it would set us up for success.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of limitations out there already. Okay, I'm going to go back to the list. Thank you, Rob. Really, really good information there. I'm going to go back to Allison.
So if you look at the alternatives in the staff report, alternative 2 is that council directs staff to amend the cidery definition in the top to read, and I think it's basically the same as what was there, except changing the where at least 25% of the cider production comes from fruit grown on the same lot or from another lot which is part of the same business. Imported BC fruit used in the cidery should be limited to no more than 75%. Okay. So I would suggest that I would make that motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would second that one, Gary.
Okay, we've got just a few more people to go through here. Thank you, Michael. I'm going to go over to you. What's your comments? Thank you.
Yes, I was going to ask what motion do we need to pass to enable the cidery to work on the 25%, and I'd be guided by yourself and Hope and others to see if we could get a go forward on that to assist the Bowen Island cidery here.
All right, thank you, Michael. Maureen.
This is a distraction question for Rob and needn't be answered right now, but I'm curious about how you will deal with the waste from the production. Is there a short answer, or do we have a long conversation later? I can't hear you.
No, there's a good answer for that. The deer eat it. Everything we press. So we've pressed the whole orchard here for the last 3 years, just for our own experience, and all the fruit has been pressed, and the deer eat it. They're hungry. We put it out. We put a pile of like pulp from the fruit out, and the next morning it's gone. I don't know if they'll get sick of eating our pulp, but that's the level that we're producing. So that's and they are happy to eat it. We've put kind of trail cameras out to see how many show up, and there's quite a few. So they seem happy, but they just eat it. And when I say quite a few, like, I don't know, there'd be 6 or 8 maybe that come by, but the deer know of our property for sure. So, but yeah, that's where it goes. There's not a lot of waste that comes off the
just
property.
say, as our orchard grows and we have more production, I have composting plans in place for using any excess pulp that we get. We also know people, like larger operations, use it for dog food. So they actually pass it on to dog food producers to use. So we would definitely make sure that if there was excess amounts, that it would be either composted or used for purpose.
Okay, thank you. I was curious because the property that I used to own was the site of the Bowen Island Brewery, and the disposition of the waste was a significant issue on that property.
It's a very different process. Our process is just apples and apple juice. There's one input into cider, or real cider, and it's fruit juice, just pure 100%. So there's no water, nothing going in. Breweries, I'm not as familiar, but they have hops and whatnot. They have lots of other inputs that go into it, so there's more waste. But there's one input; it's 100% fruit juice and nothing else going in. So it's just really from when you press. And yeah, the more we can compost here as well. So we're starting to get that going. We're getting more coordinated on how to do that. But to have soils on site that we can use is something we'll be doing. So.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, thanks, Rob. Thanks, Christine. I've got Sue Ellen, and then we'll try to wrap this up. Thank you.
Thank you. Regarding compost, I just wanted to make sure that Rob and Christine knew that there's the composting facility that we may have coming into Bowen Life, depending on our grant application and that kind of thing. So that's another option. Yeah. And yeah, I just, my concern with the motion, with the alternative motion, is the word imported. I just think it would be good for some clarity there. As I mentioned before, where the fruit is coming from. Does it mean off island, or does it mean from across an international border? If that could be clarified when we next see it, doesn't have to be now. That would be fine with me. And I would like to, and when we're at the point, I'd like to move the notice beyond 100 meters to 300 meters, if Daniel says
I thought
that.
it was 400.
400. 400's fine, and then we capture everybody. Thank you. So that's,
Yeah, but let's not get too carried away. We don't want people from on Miller Road and stuff like that, or on Adams Road, do we?
these are hundreds of meters only.
Well, I know that it's not that far away. Anyway, okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. That was a great discussion. Hope what I think I'm hearing here is people would like to go back to 25 in the TUP, go to 25%. And maybe we should, I thought, Daniel, you said 300 meters will cover that neighborhood.
Or I think there's a motion on the floor to amend it to read 25%.
I think we've got a motion moved and seconded. Yeah,
We're dealing with number 2.
Okay, but I
Which
never
is-
really heard the motion. So
Yeah, so I've
Well,
got a
I-
motion here,
Thank
Council.
you.
This is thanks to Daniel. So that council directs staff to amend the cidery definition in TUP 2021-0017 to read: cidery means the use of buildings and structures for the production of cider at a cidery facility licensed by the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch, where at least 25% of the cider production comes from fruit grown on the same lot or from another lot which is part of the same business. Imported British Columbia fruit used in the cidery shall be.
We can fix Sue Ellen's problem by saying fruit imported from British Columbia.
That's
Yes.
right. That's
It's,
what Hope is
it
saying.
says imported British Columbia fruit used in the cidery shall be limited to no more than 75% of cider production.
Yeah, so
And
does that mean fruit from British Columbia
Yeah.
Yeah.
in everybody's mind? Okay, so we don't need to change that around then. Good, okay.
A cidery may include cidery tours, cider tasting, cider sales, a picnic area, and the sale of cidery promotional products.
All right, I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Yeah,
Thank
Michael and I already moved and seconded it.
Okay.
Well,
Then I'll-
you know,
Well, technically, there was no motion on the floor at that point.
that's correct. Thank you. And okay, so I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
Yep. Aye.
Okay. And opposed? I think we're good, eh? Hope, thank you.
Good luck with that,
Okay.
Robert. Christine.
Wait,
Move on.
can I make a motion?
No, go ahead.
I would like to move that notice be given, right? That council will be considering the issuance of temporary use permit TUP 2021-0017 for cidery use for 620 Laura Road, legally described as Lot 1, Block D, District Lot 492, Plan 2250, PID 015026701 at the March 22, 2021 meeting of council. And that council authorized staff to give notice for the consideration of issuance of temporary use permit TUP 2021-0017 for cidery use for 620 Laura Road, legally described as Lot 1, Block D, District Lot 492, Plan 2250, including residences with two residents.
Properties.
I think you could just say to all properties within 300 meters.
Thank you. That's what I move. Thank you.
Okay, so we got a second for that amendment? Thanks, Maureen. And any further discussion?
It's
I'll ask-
not an amendment. Those are the two motions that are in front of us, right? These two?
Yeah, but we've already passed the other.
No, we're talking about the ones in the agenda package.
No, I understand that. But didn't we? I thought we already passed part of that.
No,
That was
Okay.
just a separate motion to deal with the percentage.
Oh, the 20. Oh, that's right too. Okay. All right then. So I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
I,
All right. Got everybody opposed? No? Thank you very much. Okay, now we can move on. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Good.
you.
Yeah, no worries.
Good luck with this.
all right, you gonna stay for the rest of the meeting?
I'm good.
Gonna get the kids to bed.
They're going to have some
Only another
cider.
2
Thanks for the
hours.
discussion. See you later.
Yeah.
Okay. Correspondence got 8.1 Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing Society request for access and site work dated February 12, 2021. Who's the lead on this, Hope?
I can certainly take that. So we received a request from Birch to undertake work. It's like preliminary construction or preliminary site clearing, rather, for the health center site. With the recent works on the, on the Birch site, with the recent works on the health center site and on the fire hall site, they're sort of keen to get in on that while it's still burning season and in advance of bird nesting season happening. So currently there is no, currently we still have the agreement to lease in place with Birch and BIM. However, we have not finalized the lease agreement per se. There's still some things being worked out. So BIM is technically still the owner and Birch has not leased it as of yet. So we would just be giving them authorization to enter our property and undertake the works. We'd also make sure that they have adequate insurance in place. And so similar to what we're letting the Snugcove House do on lot 2. So that is their request. They would like to undertake some works, including some trees and just some clearing and some burning.
All right, thanks, Hope. Any comments on this? I mean, it's almost all cleared now anyway. And eventually it's going to have to be cleared. I guess they're going to get into bird season, nesting season and around the open burning season there, but comments.
Liam has something.
Yeah, Liam.
I just wanted to clarify with some recent changes to burning allowances, there will be no burning on site.
No.
The proximity to residential is too close, as well as there's a new provincial regulation that says no burning within 1,000 meters of a public school. So
yeah.
So there won't be burning on site.
No.
That's good to know. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Liam. Sue Ellen, you were first here with your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. I wondered if, Hope, you said the municipality still owns the site. Would we still continue to own it? My understanding we were going to lease it.
Yes, we would still own it. There's just no formal lease agreement in place for them
Okay.
as
Thank
a
you.
mechanism for them to do the work.
Thank you. Yeah, I saw that we'd signed that lease agreement back in July 2019, I think.
Yeah.
So that's been in the works for a while. And can you remind me where we are with subdivision and zoning of that lot?
The subdivision is complete, so that's all in place.
Great.
We're just, I believe Daniel is working with Birch on the details of the housing agreement, which will be in the form of a bylaw.
Right. Okay, thank you. And because I'm in support of this. I think it makes sense to do all of those works at the same time. And even if Bowen Island Resilient Community Housing Association isn't successful for some reason with their grants and things like that, eventually I think we will want some kind of attainable housing there. And to me, it makes sense to make to go along with this work, partly for the safety and keeping the cost down that they mentioned, but also just for the one-time big disturbance of that whole area so people can see what's happening and what's in store for it and no surprises later and that kind of thing. And also to about the bird nesting season, makes sense to go ahead with it sooner. My question is, Hope, this is for you. At the bottom there, it says further be resolved, absence of a lease agreement. Council directs staff to prepare an agreement to enter and construct. Does that word construct need to be there? Because I don't think it should be there until we've signed a lease agreement. Could it just be agreement to enter and remove trees or whatever it says, removal of trees, stumps and cleanup?
That's just the mechanism. That's just what the agreement would be called. And in the agreement, it would stipulate the works that are to be done.
Thank you. Okay.
Liam, do you have anything to add to that?
I was going to say the same.
Great.
Thank you. It's just the name of the permit then. Thank you. That helps.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. Maureen?
I don't think I have anything more to add. Sue Ellen covered most of what I wanted to say. I guess there is one question, which is if we're not burning on site, do we know where we're burning?
Not burning, I don't think.
Yeah, so ideally the majority of it will be chipped on site. And then the chips could be used for a variety of things. And if we had our composter up and running, it would be brilliant. And for any, yeah, Rob will be down there with his trailer. And any large stumps that can't be chipped on site would have to be taken off island or taken elsewhere. I don't think that there's anywhere on island that can deal with really large debris.
Okay. I noticed that the Health Center Foundation actually has a chip sale this coming weekend.
Oh, awesome.
They are dealing with some of the debris from the work that's already been done. Thank you. Those were my questions, such as they were.
Okay, thanks, Maureen. Allison?
There's been so many different layout iterations. I'm trying to, is Birch in front of the health center or beside the health center or behind the health center?
They sort of run.
Park, yeah.
Yeah, they sort of run parallel to each other.
So the health center is going to be on Miller Road and then Birch is going to be behind it.
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I was trying to figure out. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion on this?
I'm just going to amend the motion to remove the bit about burning.
Okay, if you want.
So that it's clear.
So just say it's ended a bird nesting season?
Yes.
Okay, I will move the recommendation as amended. Second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Allison. And if there's no further discussion, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, anybody? I can't see the whole screen there.
No, looks good.
You got it, Hope. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to reports of committees, and commissions. Councillors Morris and Nicholson, council members, Community Economic Development Committee, read the recommendations from the CEDC meeting held February the 16th, 2021.
And I can lead off.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is very good news. That came up somewhat unexpectedly at the last Community Economic Development Committee meeting. Some of you may be aware that there are, and I think I've got this straight, there are economic development trusts that were established in the mid-2000s for a number of regions in the province. And they were intended to encourage economic development in rural areas, and they were funded rather well. And the different trusts use different strategies. Sometimes they funded big projects outright, sometimes they funded infrastructure, but whatever they did, Bowen Island was excluded. And I know that when I was first elected back in 2014, one of the bits of advice that was passed on to me from Gordon Gannon from the Economic Advisory Committee was that Bowen Island needed to be included in one of these trust areas, because even though the monies had been exhausted or were close to being exhausted for the area that was most likely for us, they would at some point be replenished. So the notice that we received on Friday, I guess it was, for our CEDC meeting was that the Island Coastal Economic Trust had been expanded to include a number of communities, including Salt Spring and 2 of the electoral area districts in the southern Gulf Islands, and also to include Bowen Island for the purposes of one program that they are launching that will provide support up to $70,000 for positions that are related to community economic development. So we quickly came around to drafting a recommendation for council that council direct staff to initiate discussion with the province regarding our permanent inclusion in the Islands Coastal Economic Trust, which is called ICE-T for short. And we received some advice from our representative on provincial government representative on the Community Economic Development Committee. The first one was that we have an introductory conversation with Lena Robert, the CEO of ICE-T, to get her advice on how we might get Bowen Island included permanently as a member of ICE-T, and to speak with Francine Harline of the Rural Islands Economic Partnership, which we've been helping to fund and establish over several years, about the work that she did to get Salt Spring included. And then after we had those discussions, that there be a conversation with the Ministry of Jobs, Economic Recovery and Innovation for the next steps for that, getting us included permanently. So this is no small potatoes, folks. To date, I went and looked at what ICE-T has done over the years since it was founded. To date, over $54 million in funding has been approved to support more than 240 projects, resulting in total regional investments of more than 280 million, creating an estimated 2,500 construction jobs and 2,600 long-term permanent jobs. So this is a really potentially significant development. We're asking permission to reopen a conversation that we left off back in around 2018. At that time, we were able to secure eligibility to apply for the Rural Dividend Fund, and we were successful in that application. But because ICE-T didn't have any money at that point, we thought, okay, let's not pursue that. But the time is right for us to pursue it. The door has actually been somewhat opened for us to have that conversation. So, Allison, what would you like to add to this?
Well, I just wanted to say it was ICE-T, for everybody, is basically Vancouver Island and all of the Sunshine Coast, so Powell River down to Gibson's. And the only part of Vancouver Island that was left out was basically the Capital Regional District. And so what they included, which is what we found out about last Tuesday with at our economic development meeting, was the Juan de Fuca electoral area, the Southern Gulf Islands electoral area, and the Salt Spring electoral area. So they included all those in ICE-T. And then Friday, we got the icing on the cake where we we got allowed to apply for a grant. So we just, and everybody else in Howe Sound at Gambier is eligible, and all up Gibson's and that part of the sound. So we're the only sort of island that isn't eligible, because all the way up the island, Denman and Hornby and Gabriola and Lasqueti, and they're all eligible. So we should go for it.
So this is a one only, is what you're saying, eh? You think it's a one only?
This is a one only, but the
Okay.
recommendation is to move forward with establishing, with discussion towards establishing a more permanent relationship. And also in the short run, the chair of Community Economic Development and I were participating in a couple of Zoom meetings that will give us some information about, for the short term, the program that is on the table at the moment.
So do you want to change our recommendation to regarding Bowen Island's permanent inclusion, or do you just want to put it as an inclusion?
Well, we're not in the Economic Trust right now. They have to have an order in council to add us to the map. What they've done without us being part of it is the news release that came out from Ice-T on Friday said that we were eligible to apply for the grant. So I don't know if that's nice foreshadowing to say they're going to add us to, they're going to be another order in council, but
well, I guess we should find that out first. But anyway, I'm certainly happy with that recommendation. And I'll move that recommendation. A second. Thank you.
I'll second it.
And okay, all in favor? Aye.
I just wanted to discuss it,
Oh, okay.
but I would vote in favor. I just wanted to say this is great news. There's a bunch of us on council that have worked on this over the years, and including got the Islands Trust Council involved and Metro Vancouver involved as well. And I think those groups might be able to help. If there's a need for that, please let us know. And I'm in support. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. All right, now was there another part of that? Did that get covered?
No, that's all done.
Covered.
Okay, 9.1 got, I guess it was 9.1. It's all part of the same one, I see. Okay. Okay, new business, Canada Health Communities Initiative grant application. Liam Edwards.
We voted.
Did we vote on that last resolution?
Yeah. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Yeah, okay.
Thank
So
you.
new business, Canada Health Communities Initiative grant application, Liam Edwards, CAO. All right, Liam, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is a new program that is actually federal funding that is being run by the Canadian Community Foundations of Canada, actually is what it's called. And so we did get a bit of an early heads up from our local community foundation folks, which we really appreciated. But the details didn't come out until just very recently. And for federal sized programs, it's a smaller one. It's a $31 million program for the entire country. And there's two rounds of intakes. There's one that is fast approaching in the next week or so. And then there'll be another deadline later on in the spring. So there may be two chances for applying here. There's quite a wide array of eligible types of projects, but it really is focused on immediate recovery and assistance related to impacts from COVID. And so they're looking at really trying to, how do you help communities stay healthy during this pandemic and beyond? So a lot of focus on getting people outside, getting people to be active in healthy and safe ways, and increasing accessibility to services is a key part of it. So we've done an internal call with staff and did reach out to external partners on Bowen here. And what we're landing on is a priority for us here the Bowen municipality is improving our technology in the, I should also say that the maximum grant award is $250,000. And so, you know, it's a good amount of money, but it's not intended for large capital initiatives. And so one of the things that we've been wanting to do in this year, if we could find the budget room, is to improve our technology around audio and visual for our council chambers so that we can more easily host virtual meetings as well as host meetings in council chambers, but have multiple devices occurring. We tried that a few times during the pandemic with very little success. And so we would be able to hire the right people to come in and help install something more in alignment with our needs. As well, we would like to update our website and our e-commerce platform to make accessibility to information and payment options easier for residents so that they don't have to come into the hall if they choose, if they've got an alternative method. So basically what we're looking for here tonight is your support to submit an application to this program for technology improvements to the chambers and website and e-commerce improvements.
Perfect. Thank you, Liam. Allison?
So any technology we get would be movable to the new municipal hall, office or council chambers. And I liked what you said versus what's written. Update our website rather than develop a new website.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I'll just jump in there. It would be an entire new website. Our current website is the provider has not been great, and it's the responsiveness that we get from the provider is very unsatisfactory, as well as there's just lots of limitations with the platform that we're currently using, as well as it's a proprietary CMS. So we're not able to just take it over and have somebody else run it for us, which is unfortunate. So the way I've written it is intentional, that it would be an entire new website that would have easily be able to integrate those e-commerce services, whereas we can't really, it's very limited in what we're able to do now. As well as it wouldn't be a proprietary CMS. It would be something that we can take and have anyone manage for us. It's just a little bit more money.
Okay, because I don't know how many updates and renews and redos of the website I've lived through. Okay, so
well, the last update.
We won't make the mistake of having somebody have proprietary. It'll be something that we'll own.
Well, the draw for the website that we currently have was that the company that does the website, it integrates with iCompass. So all of the agendas, and we're able to timestamp the minutes with the live streaming with the minutes, and that's super great. It all is integrated, and that was sort of the draw, that we're all using the same system. Anyhow, they've now had a falling out, and so it's best that we just go our separate ways and develop a new website.
Great.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
All right, we got one more and then you can make the motion. Sue Ellen.
Sorry, thank you. I just wanted to say I'm in support of this. I think it's really important. Actually, there's a current website, even though we've been through a couple of updates during my time on council with Maureen, some of us have been involved in them. I've got pages of things I still would like to be working better. And that's partly so that members of the public, when they come to the website, they find the information they're looking for, not something that was old, or they get frustrated and they call, or they have to come in. And I just want to make it simpler, especially since with COVID and all the migration, everybody's moved on to online. I think there's going to be more demand for people to be digital and do things digitally. So I think that's important. And I think the tools are growing and they change all the time. So it's not like building a building. I think you do have to redo your online software, your tools every few years. So I really think we need it, and it's great, and I support this.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. Yeah, we're certainly due for an update. So if we can get some money, this would be fantastic. Okay, Allison, you want to read it?
I would move that council support staff applying to, which are we going to apply to the first intake, Liam?
Yes,
Okay.
we may be back for another request applied to the second intake as well.
Okay, so that council support staff applying to the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative to support technology improvements in council chambers to allow for better public accessibility and participation, and to develop a new website that will provide greater accessibility for the public to access information, e-services, and engagement opportunities. And that council confirm its willingness to provide overall grant management in order to receive this grant funding.
Second.
Okay, Sue Ellen is the second, and I'll ask a question. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Yeah, I think we got them all. Great, thank you. 10.2 CAO update, Liam Edwards.
Hey, I have two things that I wanted to bring up, and one is that we now seem to be having monthly minister meetings with the South Region mayors and chairs of the regional district. That seems to be holding. The new minister seems quite keen on that, and so what we'll be doing going forward is they're now starting to send out summary notes, and so I'll make sure that those notes get sent around to council for everybody, and we can have them here as well on the public record. Mostly the summary notes are a little bit summary of the discussion of the call, but more often than not, it seems that they're summary of the messaging that they're wanting to share with us. And so the most recent meeting was held at the end of January, January 29th. And it was, the minister was talking about the vaccine distribution, which really we're all hearing about through the news. So there was nothing new there for the minister to provide to us. And then there was a bit of discussion about some new programming. One program in particular that's quite neat that has already been circulated to our business community, and that's this program called Launch Online Grant Program, which is similar to what we were just talking about, but this is for businesses about improving their e-platforms and their digital presence. And so our business community has already been made aware of that. And then there was updates on the various infrastructure programs and the timing of them. And we've made applications to several of those. But we do have a meeting tomorrow with the minister as well. And it's also with Minister Malcolmson, and who is the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions. And so we'll be talking with them, or hearing mostly from them and from the region about what everyone is doing with respect to mental health and wellness in the region. So we'll report back after that one too. The other thing that I wanted to touch base on was we did fall the large Douglas fir tree on the fire hall site last week. I did have a very good conversation with a couple of people at the tree that were concerned about the tree. And one of those people has reached out, as well as a couple of other people now that have reached out about, is there an opportunity to memorialize the tree in some way? And I have shared with them about one of the objectives that we're going to try to achieve is to use the material from the tree. So the challenge that we have is there aren't very many, if any, sawmills on the island that can handle a log of that size. But we have heard that there may be a new mill that was recently built that could handle it, and in which case we're going to try to get the log milled and repurposed on site for the fire hall itself. The fire department is interested in trying to preserve one of the old fire engines, and it could become the shelter structure for that fire engine out front, perhaps, as well as repurposing and using some of that wood at the community center. So we definitely have designs on using the lumber on site. And then there was a request as to whether or not we could do something along the lines of what Cortez Island did with the big tree that came down there, which was having a slice of the tree preserved and on display with a little bit of education around old growth and just tree health. And but I think both of those ideas about the fire truck shelter and the display of the tree itself and the tree rings are great, but they're not. We don't have budget allocated for either of those, and so I don't necessarily want to create a motion on the fly, but I would like to explore that further and perhaps bring that back at a later time to council for consideration.
All right. Thanks, Liam. That's it for yours? Any questions, anybody?
That's it.
Okay.
I do.
Okay, Sue Ellen, go ahead.
It wasn't a question. I just wanted to let you know, since you mentioned Minister Malcolmson, she used to be the chair of the Islands Trust until recently.
Yeah, she was, yeah. All right, we're going to move on to 10.3, which is the update to council on Metro Vancouver business. The Metro Vancouver Director, David Hawking. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Gary. So the COVID task force last week, we had a presentation by Dr. Gustafson, the Deputy BC Health Officer. And a lot of she gave a presentation and then answered questions. And most of it is stuff we're familiar with from the media. But in general, what was really interesting for me, and I guess others, is that she was generally more positive than what you sort of hear from the media. Positive in a few ways. First of all, about the way we have learned in the province to have what she was calling controlled opening systems, basically allowing things for the most part to stay open, but doing so with caution. And we seem to have done quite well at that. We're still getting new cases, but they are mostly from family gatherings and parties, that kind of thing. And that's where the clusters are mostly. There was a question about treatment options, which I found interesting. While we have heard of positive treatment options, they're not generally not useful at the population level. They're working really well in ICU type situations, but they're not the kind of treatments you get if you're not feeling that great. They're only the hospital ICU type stuff. The question about the third wave, with the new variants and so on. And she said that certainly could happen, but her expectation was that we would be able to control it a lot better than some of the other places, such as the UK, where that new variant had sort of spread around the country before they even realized that it was happening. Whereas we know that now, and we're testing carefully and contact tracing and so on. So she was pretty confident about that as well, although of course everything could go awry quite suddenly, but she felt we have the tools to prevent a third wave. I asked a question about the Oxford vaccine, and I just saw and she said she expected it any day now, and I just saw there was media coverage of that this afternoon. So that hopefully in a couple more days we'll have that one. Then a CAO update on the same topic. Metro Vancouver has had 13 staff members, 1 hospitalization. That person is home now, and there has been no work transmission. Just another report about parks, and Maureen probably will know this already, but the January numbers are visitations are up from 500,000 last year to 1.2 million just in January this year. So an astonishing increase in the use of parks. And the final point is that was the last COVID task force meeting, and the mayor's committee so that will now be handled in the mayor's committee, Gary. So that's
okay. Thank you.
So I think that was it. If there are any questions, but it was an interesting presentation, and it was great to hear someone who be sort of positive about where they're going.
All right, thanks, David. Appreciate that. Any questions for David? All right, we're going to move on to the update to council on the Islands Trust business. Islands Trust Municipal Trustees Fast and Kale. Over to you, Jeff.
Michael, I think it's your turn to go first.
Is it? Okay. All right. Well, look, so I'll leave you then to report on what's happening in March. Okay. I've been reporting on the Islands Trust review, and today I was speaking to the chair of the steering group, and they have sent the information to BC Bid to review for their template to put out for public tender for consultants for the review. And that is pretty much going to plan. We had the motion, we passed the motion, we have the steering group. The steering group is doing what it should be doing, and it's been doing it in conjunction with the CAO of Islands Trust and also the chair. Now that all sounds pretty good, but there are a few concerns on the horizon which I truly hope are unfounded. In individual conversations with a somewhat, I won't say agitated, but concerned group of steering group members, there was a real concern that given the very narrow majority that this review passed, and there, as you know, we have 26 trustees and 4 members of the executive group, and none of the executive group actually voted for this. And there is a concern that there is an effort to try and derail or delay or prevent this, this review taking place. And I spoke to the chair this morning to see the chair of the steering committee to see, well, what do you hear? And he said, well, I hear the same things as you do. And the only thing I can hope is, I hope it is just fake news and bad rumors, because if this review, which was voted on at Trust Council in December, and now has become the property of Trust Council and funded out of the 2021 budget, if it was in any way not to take place, I believe that would cause the most enormous dissent. The fact that over a third of the trustees worked very hard on preparing for the review. In fact, just over 50% of the trustees voted for this review. I just hope the review goes ahead as scheduled in the original motion and as planned, because that would be the ideal. And I don't want to see the dissension and the rancor and the necessary unpleasantness should anything happen to this review, which is generally expected now by the trustee community and the people they've represented and communicated with. So fingers crossed that it goes ahead as planned, as per the motion adopted by Trust Council. That is our greatest wish. And I hope to be able to report that that is the case. So we will certainly keep you posted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And over to Sue Ellen.
Yeah, I'll just follow up with that we did have a discussion at Financial Planning Committee, but nothing will be decided without the input of all trustees. And so that meeting will be March 9th, 10th, and 11th, all on Zoom. And you can find out about it in 1217 in the info items, the invitation basically for anybody to attend any of that is there, and all the links. And I wanted to let you know, I sent around a list of benefits, because of the benefits of belonging to the Islands Trust for Bowen Island specifically, because so much of the discussion is around cost. And so we can discuss that tomorrow. It is our joint meeting with Islands Trust and Bowen Island Municipality. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. And update to Council on Metro Vancouver Regional Parks Committee meetings. Councillor Nicholson.
I did have a question for Sue Ellen on her report, Gary.
Yeah.
Sue Ellen, you said that
Oh, sorry.
you said that there would be discussion at the Finance Committee, and that nothing would be determined until then. Could you clarify what?
Sure.
Yeah.
Financial Planning Committee of the Islands Trust. That meeting took place last week. Yeah, on Wednesday. And we made some recommendations. I don't have the minutes yet. And but I know that there was discussion around all the things, all the wants and wishes and needs that would be coming from the budget that's on the agenda for the March meeting. And so that's what basically trustees will be looking at, is all the items that are slated for the budget, which has had some things added to it since it was first proposed back in September, including the project that Trustee Kale was just talking about. Okay. So there, and since then there's been more things added as we've had more grants come in, and some things have changed, and we can ask more. By all means, bring it up tomorrow.
Okay, thank you,
But
Sue Ellen.
we do have a whole day set aside in Trust Council. I believe it's the Tuesday, the 9th, to talk about the policy statement, because we're still gathering the information about that. That's similar to a regional growth strategy for a regional district, and it's kind of the OCP of all the OCPs, and so that'll be discussed on the day of the 9th, and then we'd go into budget for the other 2 days.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Maureen. Sue Ellen. And 10.6 update to.
Oh no, hang on. Maureen's got to do parks. There's a great big announcement.
You never got there, yeah.
So included in your council agenda is the agenda from the last parks meeting, along with the presentation. I encourage you to take a look at those. There's quite an interesting discussion of the assets held by municipal parks and the asset management required to maintain all of the bridges and the roads and the buildings and so forth that are part of our regional park system. My report, though, is going to focus on something that was unexpected, and the rest of council has been given a heads up on this. And if you recall, council, last month we did a last-minute letter of support for a grant application that Metro Vancouver Parks was making to the province under the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure program. And that program had 3 different streams, one of which was heritage infrastructure. So Metro Vancouver Parks applied for funding to support the Davies Orchard project. And this morning, Metro Vancouver Parks was advised by Heritage BC and by the province that they were successful in their application. Not for the full amount, but for $450,000, which is quite a few smackers. It's the largest, this is from the Executive Director of Heritage BC, it's the largest one-time infusion of funds into the heritage sector in British Columbia, like ever. So the Heritage BC folks are really quite excited. The stream itself totaled $20 million. and there were 159 submissions to the heritage streams, and those were adjudicated by heritage professionals, and there were 68 communities that were supported through the program. In particular, what was attractive about the Metro Vancouver application, I don't know this for sure, but I expect it, was that it was a shovel-ready project. All that planning that was done in 2018 or so that did not proceed actually meant that we had some, that Metro Parks had some very good plans and a very clear understanding of the heritage value of the Davies Orchard to both Bowen Island and to British Columbia. So it has paid off. So this morning I had a very excited conversation, excited on both ends with Metro Parks, where they were thinking, oh my gosh, now what? And reviewing their budget and figuring out what the conversation would be with the Metro Parks Committee, not all of whom are in support of the Davies Orchard project, but a cash injection of $450,000 is bound to focus the mind. So more to say on this in coming weeks as it works through the Parks Committee, but to have received such a really significant contribution to that project is quite remarkable, and to be honest, I think very unexpected, which says something about the value that the province is putting into recognizing, the history, the community life. And we saw a lot of that in the past week over Heritage Week, when there was lots of activity in social media, on the municipal website, recognizing the history of this community, which is really quite unique. So to get this unique heritage support is very, I think, very rewarding. More to come.
Hopefully. That's great, Maureen. That's such good news. What was the original ask on that?
It was $1 million.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, $1 million.
Well, it's not quite half. It's almost. So
well, nothing wrong with that, though. But what
Yeah.
is there? Do they have to do it by a certain date? Is there any pressure on Metro that way?
It's 2 years out, Gary.
Oh, 2 years. Awesome. Okay.
So what they're doing right now, they looked at when they made the grant application, they looked at all of the work that had been done to cost out the orchard project.
Yeah.
And they figured out how much of it was built infrastructure and how much of it was landscaping, sort of all the on the ground work.
Yeah.
And they knew that they couldn't ask for the latter, so they asked for the cost of the built infrastructure work.
Okay.
And they do have funds in next year's budget to work on the orchard, and they have funds allocated in the 5-year plan in the subsequent year. So they're looking at how to adjust some things and what can reasonably be accomplished, and to what end with the grant funded that they have received.
Well, that's extremely encouraging. David?
Thank you, Gary, and thanks, Maureen. I've got a question, not about this, but about your asset management report.
Yeah.
And it was a bit worrying to look at. I know, Metro Vancouver, the budgets are really tight. How serious, just sort of looking at the graph of the money that's needed for trails and the money that's in the budget and all that sort of stuff. Will this be, will they be taking this forward to the budget workshop, or are they going to find ways of fixing this? Any thoughts about how that went? Just just help me understand a little bit.
I think it will be taken forward to the budget workshop,
Okay.
and about half of the committee also serves on the board, so they will put forward their arguments. I think everybody on the committee understood the magnitude of the funding that would be required for the parks infrastructure. I mean, the largest part of the, and you'll see this if you look at the rest of you, if you look at the asset management plan, the largest part of the funding goes towards the built infrastructure, the buildings in the park system, which are rated as fair.
Yeah.
There are a lot that are in much better shape than the ones in the orchard, but overall they're rated as fair. And for Metro, they have to always look at buildings quite critically, because they're not in the business of buildings. They're in the business of parks and trails and bridges and so forth.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be a worrying conversation at the board level.
Yeah, I mean, there was already fair discussion at the last board workshop about that additional money that went to parks for their acquisition budget. So if this sort of throws a spanner in that discussion, it'd be a bit worrying. Anyway, okay, thanks, Marina. Look into it a little bit more before that happens. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, David. Anybody else? Not seeing anybody here, so great. We'll move on. Thanks, Maureen. That's super good news. And we'll move on now to an update to council and translate mayor's council meetings. Councillor Allison Morris.
Nothing to report. We're not meeting till Thursday.
Okay, thank you, Allison. And 10.7 is moved to a closed council meeting. The recommendation is council move to a closed meeting immediately following the regular council meeting to discuss items pursuant to section 90/1 Alpha, Juliet, and Lima of the community charter. I'll move that.
Hang on, can I just ask, when do we discuss the items removed from the consent agenda?
Next.
When we get down there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And so I move that. Second then, please.
Sure.
Okay, Michael, thank you. And all in favor? All right.
Oh, I
Okay.
got to stick my hand up so you can see it.
And okay, items removed from the consent agenda. And I'll start with Rob. You had 12.8 and 12.11.
Yeah, Gary, I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind taking those together.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we've had a couple letters regarding the tree removal that went to council, but there was a much bigger discussion online. I think at the end of the day, when I went through all of over 400 or 500 comments, some people the same back and forth and whatnot. But let's just say it was a good spirited Bowen Island conversation. At times a bit tense, at times not. But I just thought there's some things that I just wanted to either comment on, or some commonalities that I saw in a lot of the discussion that I think council should be aware of, especially if you're not sort of keeping track of Facebook and seeing what's happening there. One is around, I pulled 12.8 because it talked quite a bit about environment issues. And one of the threads that really came out is, how unique we are that we have a forest that goes right into the cove and almost right to the ferry, and how that is something, economically, obviously with tourism is a big thing, but also, it's part of our identity. And with us developing our community lands, I think there's some angst around what people have seen happen at lot 3 there, where basically went over there just before this meeting, and it's basically cut, almost everything's cut, and birch, I chatted with Robin today about it, they're going to take all the trees out there, to 30 trees. So obviously not very pretty looking. I don't think this was just about one tree being cut. I think it was a generalized feeling that, people want us really to put a bit more, a higher emphasis on the environmental considerations around that. And, I've talked to a lot of you about this over 2.5 years now, And I think we could have done more on that side. So I just want to, raise that forward. I think, parking, drive in, drive out, site allocations. I think we could have done better job on that site. And I do hope that when we're looking at the other two sites, lot 1 and 2, which are completely forested areas as well, that we're a bit more careful there and that we take those considerations and the concerns that, the forest around the cove are slowly being taken apart and that's worrisome to me and I think to a lot of other people. Second part was around just generalized citizen involvement, and letter 1211 talked a bit about the petition that went out. And I think there's 200 or some odd people that signed the petition anyway to stop the cutting of the tree, which is, water under the bridge at this state. But petitions are just, when I see petitions come forward and I get them, I've seen them come before in my work in the municipality in North Van, it's usually an alarm bell that something is not going well with discussions. When citizens have to sort of lobby us to do things, I think that's problematic. We should be engaged with them as the process goes, and people shouldn't feel that they need to go outside of that engagement process and start lobbying us and putting out petitions and whatnot. And, I've been on council now 2.5 years, and I think we've had 4 petitions. One was IDLC, and 3 of them were fire hall related. So, an awareness that I think there has been a bit of communication breakdown here. I think a big part of this, and I think it's a frustration for some long-term councillors, has been just the delay in this project. And just 2.5 years me being on this, we're on our 3rd CAO. Hopefully, Liam, I can still say that in a couple of years from now. 3 fire chiefs, a new CFO at the time, committee turnover, fired the architect firm, back and forth. So obviously things have gotten lost through this process. And, and I was disappointed to see, that there's even, 2 ladies that had to go stand in front of a tree. And I'm really happy that our staff went out and chatted with them. But even for myself as a counselor, like when I refused to go in that, the closed meeting, that was very uncomfortable for me. I did not want to do that, but I felt that we were not having a very robust discussion with people on island and bringing them on board. And, that creates mistrust. People started speculating. So there was lots of speculation and confusion and angst and whatnot. Anyway, I do see us moving much in a positive direction. I think we got some good staff on board. I think our communication has drastically improved. As a communication example, really quickly, like somebody texted me a notice that we put out when we did the first tree cutting, and right here in the thing that we sent to people's houses is there are 2 mature trees on the site that we intend to leave intact. We will be taking extra care not to damage them so that they can remain growing there. So, I mean, I can see there's confusion when people then hear, boom, the trees are getting cut down and that they're not on the same page with us. So I just wanted to bring some awareness to both of those issues. And especially now, and I think there's also, with just a volume of project going through right now, people want to catch their breath too. They feel there's so much stuff coming down the pipe. I think we can all agree there's a lot of stuff coming down, and I do see us moving forward in a better direction. I think we got some good new staff, and I think the communication has drastically improved. And but I just wanted to sort of bring that to people's attention and make sure that that's information is shared. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
Okay, thanks, Rob. And yeah, to your point, that's well said. And, we have to be really sensitive. In that particular case, we didn't have any options. If we had options, we would have made a different decision, but there wasn't options in that case. But you're right, because the wholesale taking down of the trees, and it's not over yet. There's more to come. Unfortunately, all these things have got piled into one. If we had a 5-year gap in between them, it wouldn't be as sensitive. But conceivably, when the community center gets going, that's going to be another one. Mind you, that's all just, there's nothing iconic in there for really, but it was very unfortunate. And The one thing I do appreciate is both Sylvain and Moira, when given the circumstances, understood that, yes, this tree did have to come down, and it's something we had thought about. But you're right, the communication maybe could have been a little bit better. So I appreciate your thoughts on that. Okay, Sue Ellen, and 12.4.
Oh, yeah, thank you. This is just, there are some maps associated with, this is just regarding reducing the risk of fire around the communications equipment, telecommunications equipment on the top of Radar Hill and Mount Gardner. And one of the maps, the first one, which is around the top of Mount Gardner, it seems to mark most of the other areas, including the old growth management areas, but it doesn't include the critical, federal government has mapped critical habitat for marbled murrelet on Bowen Island, and some of that is up there in the old growth part. I don't have the maps, and I'm not the right person to say exactly what it is. What I would like is for David Poon there, who wrote us that letter in 12.4, have somebody on staff send him that information, and maybe that I can get, if people want, I can get Islands Trust Conservancy to send them that information, or we could ask Bonnie to do it, and she could make sure that our municipal staff have that as well, if it's relevant. But I think it should be, because they're talking about spotted owls and things like that in there.
Okay.
So I would, do I need to make a motion?
Okay, well, let's see what the motion sounds like.
Well, I would just move that council direct staff to provide David Poon of Flynn Road with mapping indicating the critical marbled murrelet habitat on Bowen Island.
Okay.
And I'll send Bonnie and Kate an email. Okay.
I think if it's that important, yeah. Okay, so do we have a second on that?
Sure, I'll second.
Okay, thanks, David. And all in favor? Aye. Good. That's unanimous. We'll move that along and see what happens. Yeah, but do you think there is actually an area out there, Sue Ellen?
I've seen it on maps, Gary. I wasn't able to find it to present tonight, but I don't.
Okay. We'll find out.
What I'm reading from is this is the species at risk. This is from the regional conservation plan that has a Bowen section in it. And I'd be happy to send around the link if anybody's interested.
Okay.
I'll send it around. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And okay, so we got that straightened out. The question period, there's nobody to answer and ask any questions. I don't see outside there. And on that happy note, we will adjourn this meeting, and it's 8:22. Do people just want to move straight into the close?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Do we have to sign off and sign on again?
I would think so. Hope. Yeah. Okay, so let's just go right back in then.
All right.
Okay.